These are the words of Reverend Lee, the sermon that she sent along in advance. It was the TikTok that launched 1,000 opinions. A short video uploaded this past summer in July by a 20-something engineer in New York named Zaid Khan. It's only 17 seconds long, so I'll read you the transcript, where Zaid says, "I recently learned about this term called quiet quitting, where you're not outright quitting your job, but you're quitting the idea of going above and beyond. You're still performing your duties, but you're no longer subscribing to the hustle culture mentality that work has to be your life. The reality is, it's not, and your worth as a person is not defined by your labor." You'll notice Zaid says, "I recently learned about this term called quiet quitting," implying he was not the one who invented it. But his video was the first appearance of the phrase online, and it was the one that got people talking. Within days, The Guardian had an article. The Wall Street Journal had an opinion. CNBC and The Today Show were doing morning segments. The reaction to this idea was, as one writer put it, simultaneously baffled and enthusiastic. Angry and gleeful, reflecting perhaps the truth that we as a people have some stuff to work out when it comes to our relationships with work. At my congregation this winter, we've been talking about a quote by the poet Maya Angelou, who once reminded us that making a living is not the same as making a life. We've been sharing reflections on how all the different kinds of work that we do, paid and unpaid, visible and invisible, they're not just a means to an end. Our work is part of how we express who we are, part of how we make up this life and find purpose in the 90-odd some years we hope to be on this earth. There can be so much beauty in our work, but also sometimes so much doubt, so much frustration and tedium, so much ambivalence. Ambivalence, that word that means we have mixed feelings. We're living in a state where two things can be true at once. Perhaps we recognize that there's some tension and ambivalence around our relationship to work, that our work helps us make meaning of our place in this enormous world in the span of history and time, but that it also isn't the only thing that helps us make that meaning. Our work isn't the only thing about our lives that matters. Quiet quitting joined up last year with another phrase we've been hearing about for a long time now, a phrase called, "Nobody wants to work anymore." And among those 1,000 opinions that both of these phrases have launched, you'll hear one expressed a lot, the opinion of folks who say that our ambivalence around work is generational, or that it's something somehow unique to our time, maybe caused by the COVID-19 pandemic, or even by the government's response to it. So a Canadian researcher from the University of Calgary decided to test those theories in an unusual way. He decided to use his access to academic libraries through work to search for old newspaper clippings of people complaining at all times throughout history that nobody wants to work anymore. There's one from 2022 that says, 1 in 5 executive leaders agree no one wants to work. But then there's one from 2014, before the pandemic, that says, nobody wants to work anymore. It has not always been that way. Oh, but has it? He found a clipping from 1999 that said, nobody wants to work anymore. They all want to work in front of a computer and make lots of money. He found a story from 1981. I hired 2 boys to clear the rocks off this land last week, but they just fooled around. He found one from 1952. Everybody is getting too darned lazy and nobody wants to work anymore. 1937. Nobody wants to work anymore. 1916, nobody wants to work anymore. And y'all, I'm skipping like 60% of the examples he found. He found examples back to 1894. And when he posted all of these on Twitter, other people chimed in and found examples in writing dating all the way back to 1520. That's like since paper, isn't it? Since paper, people have been saying this. For at least 500 years, we humans have been criticizing each other for not wanting to work hard enough. We have criticized and felt anxious for not wanting to work hard enough. We've criticized and felt anxious and felt inadequate about the quality and impact of our work. Why would we stop now just because Zaid Khan posted a TikTok about it? The answer to that, of course, is that we can always see our patterns, our history as a people, and yet choose a different path forward. We can always see these long-standing patterns of human history, whether they're patterns in how we've treated the planet, or the poor, or the immigrant, or the woman, or the worker, and decide to go a different way. To move towards something more honest and whole and healing, to move toward a way of life that honors the spirit of love we all carry inside. We can do that as a people, and we can do that in our own lives, in our communities, on a smaller scale as well. We saw an example of this a few weeks ago on a Monday night. Some of us may have actually been watching live on TV as it happened. Some of us heard about it after the fact. A 24-year-old safety for the Buffalo Bills, a young football player, Damar Hamlin, suddenly collapsed on the field. Damar suffered a cardiac arrest. He stopped breathing. He had no pulse. It took 9 minutes of CPR on the field to bring him back to life. 9 minutes during which his teammates in tears surrounded him, some kneeling and praying, along with the opposing team, everyone shocked by the sudden intrusion of a real life and death moment into this game that's also a business, that's played for high stakes and is a dream job for probably every single player out on that field. And if you haven't been following this story, Damar has been released from the hospital. He is talking and walking and beginning rehab at home, and his recovery is a miracle, a joyful thing. But we didn't know that on Monday night. And there was this brief moment after Damar was taken away in an ambulance, his survival completely uncertain, where the players were told they'd have 5 minutes to warm up and resume the game. Now, the NFL has disputed this. They say the direction to resume came from confusion on the field, not from the folks in charge. And regardless of whether you believe that or not, what happened in that moment is that both teams believed that they were being asked to go out on the field and get back to work. And within a minute or two, we saw the head coach of the opposing team, Zach Taylor, walk across to the Bills coach, Sean McDermott, for a brief conversation. And then both coaches turned around and led their respective teams back to the locker room, saying clearly, we're not going back there in 5 minutes. Now again, there's some debate about what caused the delay. It was nearly another hour before the NFL officially canceled the game. But in the days that followed, one of the things we heard consistently from former players and former NFL coaches was that this kind of respect for and deference to the players as human beings was a change. The patterns and the history of pro football in this country as an institution that treats players' safety, their bodies, as pure commodities, has been slowly changing. And we may never know the full story of how it happened that Monday night, but whether it was the players' resistance or some real degree of culture change in those executive offices, the result was a group of men who were free to be whole humans at work, who were given the space to experience their grief and their fear and direct their attention to the person who needed it most. Their hurting coworker, yes, but more importantly, their friend, the man, the person, Damar. I've given you a dramatic example, but it shouldn't require a life or death emergency to make space for our full humanity around our work. And that's part of why I think it's so important to talk about making a life, not just making a living, because we have these clumsy, awkward ways of talking about our ambivalence about work, as if there's a zero-sum game here. Even that phrase, work-life balance, seems to pit the two against each other, as if work and life are two separate, equal things at odds with each other somehow, like they're on separate ends of a seesaw. But work is a part of life, and it's one part of a whole and fulfilling life. We long to contribute and create and tend and build something while we're here. And we have so many ways to live. Work and rest and family and play and hobbies and celebrating and grieving and healing and learning and adventure and creating are all a part of life. Whether you call this idea of putting work in its proper place and perspective, whether it's quiet quitting, work-life balance, setting boundaries, what it does is make space. It's not anti-work or anti-effort or anti-purpose to make that space. In fact, that space might just be the space where we find the meaning and the purpose that sustains us for everything, for all of our living. It can be the space to grow and tend to 4 ingredients for living that all human beings need. Space for reflection about what matters to us, about how we spend our time. Space for intention in the choices we make and the actions we choose. Intention in where to send our energy. Those boundaries make space for curiosity, giving us time to follow our own interests and learn about things and people and places we might never have otherwise found, but that we just might fall in love with. And they make space for loving connection, for us to take part in relationships and communities where we learn to share this life, where we learn to give and to receive and recognize the gift of grace, that not everything we receive has to be earned. And so let's flip that script of quiet quitting, or maybe just make some more room around it, and take the opportunity this morning for a quiet beginning. Where can you find those 4 ingredients? Have you stopped recently to reflect on what really matters to you? On how you spend most of your time? Do you have clarity on your intentions for where you'd like to send your energy and what choices you can make to support that intention? What are you curious about these days? How can you learn more and move in the direction of learning? And what loving connections are around you? What relationships or communities will support you as you work to make a whole life? These are the ingredients that make us human, that help us integrate the beauty of our good work, our meaningful contributions, our pride in a job well done, into a full life that holds so much more. We make a life out of what we do, but it's not exactly what we do that gives our life meaning. It's all this other stuff. The time to reflect on where we've been and what we've seen, to choose what's next, to keep learning and growing, and to do it all in the company of our fellow humans, the people we love. May you find a quiet beginning this morning to whatever next phase of your life is emerging and being made right now. Amen.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, you can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.